Mr. Doorkeeper.
Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and the honorable members of the Senate are at the door of the House.
Admit the Honorable Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and the honorable members of the Senate. Chair recognizes Mr. Dominguez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, senators, please welcome behind me Commissioners John Wood, Steve Guetta, and Ralph Cowden of the Port of Brownsville. In addition, members of the 2019 Brownsville Leadership Class of 2019. Welcome to your house.
Members, if we could please take our seats, we can begin the process. I'm gonna Mr. Doorkeeper.
Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Greg Abbott, Governor of Texas, and the First Lady of Texas, Cecilia Abbott, and their party are at the door of the House.
Admit the Governor and the First Lady and their party.
The Senate will come to order. A quorum is present.
The House will please come to order. The quorum is present. The House and Senate are meeting in joint session today pursuant to HCR 38, providing for an address by Greg Abbott, Governor of Texas. We are pleased today to have on the dais with us the First Lady of Texas, Cecilia Abbott. I'm now very honored to recognize the Honorable Dan Patrick, our Lieutenant Governor and friend, to introduce the Governor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honor to be with you. It's my great honor and pleasure to introduce my friend, your governor, your friend, to all Texans, the Honorable Greg Abbott.
Thank you all. Thank you all of you all so very much. And I want to say thank you, Governor Patrick, for your friendship and for your leadership. And it's an honor. It's a loud microphone. It's an honor to work with you as well as with Speaker Bonnet as we embark upon this new session. I will say it's a session, by the way, that is going to etch landmark achievements into this already historic chamber. And I want to begin by thanking the deans of the two chambers for the leadership they provide. The longest serving member of the Texas House of Representatives, Tom Craddock. And of course, the Dean of the Texas Senate, John Whitmire. And thanks also to all of the members of the Texas House of Representatives in whose chamber we gather today. Thanks to the members of the Texas Senate. Thanks to the members of the judiciary, to our statewide officials, and especially thanks to our fellow Texans who gather with us here today, as well as all the Texans across the state for whom we go to work every single day. And it is especially a pleasure for me to have by my side my wife, Cecilia, the fabulous First Lady of the greatest state in America. Think about this. On this very day, about 1,000 new residents are going to call Texas home. As you all know, that happens almost every day. Now, whether you like that fact or dislike that fact, we can never lose sight of the reason so many people are making the life-altering decision to uproot their families and businesses and chart new paths that guided them to Texas. They were fed up with big government policies that increasingly run their lives and impose burdensome regulations. They were taxed out of the states that some of their families had lived in for generations. The cost of doing business, imposed by heavy-handed interest groups, simply became too oppressive. They needed an escape. They longed for freedom. They wanted hope. They found it in Texas. Now listen, I know that we may not be perfect, but to all the newcomers I talk to, they think that Texas is a governmental holy grail. The newcomers, they have joined together with longtime Texans, and together we have forged what has become the most powerful state in the United States of America. For example, Texas leads the nation in new job creation, and we have the fastest growing economy in America. A byproduct of this success is a prosperity that touches every corner of our state. For example, Texas recorded its lowest unemployment ever this past year, and wages are rising. If you dig even deeper into the stats, you're going to see that we also lead the nation in jobs created by African American business owners and by Hispanic women business owners. And get this, Texas is now #1 in America for women entrepreneurs. Women like Tamala Austin. Tamala is a Houston entrepreneur who founded a company called Jive Juice. She founded it out of her home about 7 years ago. She worked tirelessly to grow her business across the entire Houston region, all while working a second job full-time and raising a teenage daughter. Inspiration, hard work, and drive, they pay off in Texas. They paid off for Tamala because Jive Juice recently became the first African American owned juice company to be carried by Whole Foods. We have this young entrepreneur with us today. Tamala Austin, would you please stand and let us thank you for your inspiration of what a business leader can be. Hopefully you'll have some samples in the back when we get through here, Tamala. You know, I've seen for myself, when women succeed, Texas succeeds. And listen, we all know about another #1 ranking that Texas holds. Texas is #1 in the nation for oil and gas production. So much so that America will be energy independent by next year. And as Brooks Landgraf knows better than anybody, one word makes our energy independence possible. That word, Texas. At Todd Hunter, with our new LNG export facilities, Texas is helping emerging economies across the entire globe wean themselves off of coal and instead use clean burning natural gas produced right here in the Lone Star State. And get this, even with the increased oil and gas production, we have lowered nitrogen oxide levels by 45%. This reduction in pollutants is equal to removing more than 85 million passenger cars off the roads of Texas. Now, as meaningful as the oil and gas industry is to our economy, the fact is the Texas economy is more diversified than it's ever been. From areas like aerospace to cybersecurity, financial services to manufacturing, from Fortune 500 companies to businesses and startups. Texas is the premier economic destination in the United States of America. And Texas, I'm proud to say, has led America in exports for 16 years in a row. And Gary Farmer, you'll be interested in this, Texas has led the nation in the export of technology for 5 years in a row. Now more than ever, the most powerful label is Made in Texas. Now, importantly, our economic might is not just limited to our large cities. It touches smaller communities across the state. Job-creating projects have broken ground in places ranging from the tip of the state and the northern part of the Panhandle into Amarillo, all the way down to Brownsville. In places like Lufkin and Mount Pleasant, in Temple in Paris, Texas, where I joined with Brian Hughes late last year on a groundbreaking project. These business expansions are a result of the Texas Enterprise Fund that promotes economic diversification across the entire state. Our collective work has led to record-breaking acclaim. And I've got to tell you, it's also led to some pretty impressive hardware. The Governor's Cup is given to the state that leads America for the most new and expanded business facilities. And for the past 4 years, Texas has been ranked #1 in the nation for that category. We are joined today by representatives of the Metro 8 Chambers of Commerce. Would you all please stand? These chambers and their peers across the state, they work with us to keep Texas #1 for business. Keep holding those up. They are holding the 4 Governor's Cups that you, the members in this chamber, helped Texas earn over the past 4 years. Texas is the Alabama when it comes to economic development. Now, these trophies are a tangible reminder of the excellence that we can achieve when we work together. Now, Texas remains America's prime destination for businesses and for job seekers, in part because of the actions taken by the members of the Senate and the House in this Capitol. You, the members of the House and Senate, it's you who helped to foster opportunities for Texas's economic prowess. You spurred more investment and business startups. You did it by slashing regulations and by cutting the business margins tax. You funded road building strategies that provide more than $7.5 billion in road construction each year. And you help to make our schools safer and also better. More students are graduating from high school and college than ever before in our state's history. And we have more public high schools ranked in the top 100 and more blue ribbon public schools than any state in America. Higher education is also better. In the past 4 years, we exceeded our goal of doubling the number of Tier 1 universities. And today, Texas is home to 9 Tier 1 universities. We are on the path to becoming America's epicenter for research and innovation. Take, if you would, just one example. Dr. Jim Allison of the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center and J.M. Lozano, you might be interested to know that Dr. Allison is a native of Alice, Texas, and he won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for developing a revolutionary way to treat cancer, proving once again the minds of Texas are changing the world. I'm proud to say that with us today is Dr. Jim Allison. Would you please stand and let us recognize you for winning the Nobel Prize. Now, Texas is not only smarter than ever, we're also safer. Last session, you all enacted in a bipartisan fashion to protect the most vulnerable children by reforming a broken foster care and child protective services system. And thanks to the leadership of Senator Royce West and Representative Phil King, you all help ensure that our law enforcement officers would be safer by providing them with rifle-resistant vests. And together, you all passed laws that crack down on dangerous gangs and human traffickers who threaten our citizens. You know, when you combine our legislative achievements with our record-breaking prosperity, you have elevated Texas to rarefied status. And I am proud to tell you that the state of Texas has never been better. Listen, the fact is that we have accomplished so much. But you all know as well as I do that more must be done if we are going to fulfill the promise of Texas. This session, for just the next few months, we have this very narrow window of opportunity where we can tackle some challenges that have plagued our state for generations. Our mission begins with our students. Yes, we are graduating more students from high school than ever before, but we have more students graduating who simply are not ready for either college or a career. Here's the problem. Only about 40% of third graders are actually reading at the third grade level by the time they finish the third grade. And not surprisingly, less than 40% of students who took the ACT or the SAT were actually prepared to go on to college. To improve this, we must target education funding to help our students achieve in school. That starts with our teachers in the classroom. Now, other than parents, no one plays a more vital role to our students' education than our teachers. So, Texas must recruit and retain the best and brightest teachers to educate our students. This session, we must pay our teachers more. We must provide incentives to put effective teachers in the schools and classrooms where they are needed the most. And we must create a pathway for the best teachers to earn a six-figure salary. The teacher pay system used by the Dallas Independent School District shows this strategy works. When I visited Blanton Elementary School in Dallas, I met an outstanding teacher who was only in his third year of teaching and already making more than $90,000 a year in salary. Teachers across the state should have that same opportunity. And with Senator Taylor and Representative Huberty leading the reform effort, I know we can get this done. Working together, we will create a Texas where every student is reading at grade level by the time they finish the third grade, where every child, regardless of their zip code, is going to receive a quality education, and where every student graduates with far more than just a diploma. They will graduate with the tools that are needed for them to be able to succeed in either college or career. And that is precisely what is being done in school districts across the state. School districts like Dallas, San Antonio, Longview, Far San Juan, and Fremont. And I want to thank the superintendents who have been leading the way in those school districts, superintendents who are with us here today. They include Superintendents Hinojosa, Martinez, Wilcox, King, and Van Maitre. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the excellence that you provided to teachers and students in your school districts. Now, rarely has Texas witnessed such a bipartisan and bicameral support for an issue this substantial this early in a legislative session. I credit the leadership of the Speaker and the Lieutenant Governor, but I also credit the members of the House and Senate for listening to your constituents. And I especially appreciate those who worked this past year on the School Finance Reform Commission. So a very special thank you to Senators Betancourt and West, and West is out here, Senators Betancourt and Taylor, and Senator West, as well as Representatives Bernal, Huberty, and King for your leadership and for your tireless work on that School Finance Commission. So to keep this momentum going, I am declaring school finance reform and increasing teacher pay as emergency items this session. Now, as we improve our schools, it's simply not enough just to give our students a better education. We must also create a learning environment that is safe. No student should be afraid to go to school. No parent should be fearful when dropping their child off at school. Texas must act now to make our schools safer. So I am declaring school safety an emergency item this session. After the horrific shooting that took place at Santa Fe High School, I held roundtables here in the Capitol, roundtables with parents, with students, with educators, with law enforcement, and with mental health experts. We developed some innovative solutions to better protect our students and our teachers. It's time to turn those ideas into solutions. We must do all that we can to make our schools safer. Working together, we will deliver on our promise to our parents, to our teachers, and to our students. Now, when it comes to school safety, there is one issue, one solution that everybody agreed upon. It was the need to address mental health in our schools. And I commend Senator Nelson, who wasted no time in crafting a strategy that does exactly that. She has pointed out that many of our universities already have mental health programs. Programs like the Telemedicine Wellness Project at Texas Tech. It partners with school districts in West Texas to identify and remove students who pose a potential threat and to provide students with the help they need. Well, school districts across the entire state deserve access to these very same services. And listen, as we all know, mental health issues are not just confined to our schools. They touch our entire society. Well, to better address these issues, Senator Nelson also provides a broad-based plan, a plan that creates a mental health care consortium to collaborate on statewide mental health needs. And in typical Texas fashion, her idea is big and it is bold. And to ensure it has enough time to become law this session, I am declaring it an emergency item. There's a banister behind that story. Speaking of emergencies, I think we can all agree another emergency is property tax reform in Texas. Listen, if we are going to keep Texas the economic engine of America, we must rein in a property tax system that punishes families and businesses. and prevents younger Texans from being able to achieve their dream of home ownership. We can no longer sit idly by while property tax owners are being reduced to tenants of their own property, with taxing authorities playing the role of landlord. Our constituents are counting on us. Now, I applaud both the House and the Senate for working together in unprecedented fashion on identical bills that limit the ability of taxing authorities to raise your taxes. I want to call out Senator Betancourt as well as Representative Burrows for your tireless work early on in the session, working pretty much around the clock to crank out the identical HB2 and SB2 and getting them on file already. Thank you for your hard work. It is important to emphasize and for everybody to know that along with this property tax reform, Texas will also be making new investments in education and investments in reducing the burden of Robin Hood in our state. Now, this reform isn't just about restraining the growth of property taxes. It's also about restoring power to the people of Texas. That is why I propose giving taxpayers the ability to fire their property tax appraiser and to elect a better one. By taking these actions, we're going to do far more than just reform our property tax system. We will ensure that seniors who have worked their entire lives are going to be able to afford to retire in a home that they've already paid off. We will give hope to the next generation of Texans that they too can realize their dream of home ownership. And we will ensure that middle and low income Texans will be able to remain in the neighborhoods they cherish. It is for those Texans that I am making property tax reform an emergency item this session. Now, we can't talk about homes in this state without also talking about all the homes that have been devastated by Hurricane Harvey. When I look back upon this past year and a half, I remember the more than 75 trips that I took to regions hit by Hurricane Harvey, all the way from Rockport over to Orange County. And every trip I made, there were legislators there by my side. In fact, if there's any legislator with us here today who joined with me on those multitude of trips, why don't you stand up and let us thank you for the tireless work that you put in to work for your constituents. Thank you for what you guys did in helping to respond to Hurricane Harvey. Listen, as you all saw, and in fact, as everybody saw, even if you weren't down on the coastal region, you saw it on TV. In the face of the greatest natural disaster our state has ever seen, our fellow Texans showed the world that no earthly force is more powerful than Texan spirit. From our first responders and emergency workers, to community leaders and faith-based groups, from our partners at the federal government to the citizens who gave of their time and their own personal resources. Texans stepped up to help those in need. Texans like Morgan McCullough and Casey Aslan. They are nurses at Memorial Hermann Medical Center in Houston. Well, Morgan and Casey, they were unable to drive to work during the flooding that amassed Houston, Texas, because the flooded streets of Houston had turned into rivers. So, undeterred, they packed up their gear in an inflatable kayak, and they paddled for 2 hours to get to the hospital so they could take care of their patients. Morgan and Casey, they embody what it means to be a Texan helping a Texan, and they are with us here today. Morgan and Casey, would you please stand up and let us thank you for the way that you helped respond to Hurricane Harvey. To help our communities and residents harmed by Hurricane Harvey, Texas has already committed more than $1 billion. Additionally, the federal government has already appropriated more than $30 billion in aid. But I think we all know more resources are needed if we are going to help Texans rebuild. So, I commend both the House and the Senate, which have already proposed using rainy day funds to help rebuild Texas, rebuild stronger and more resilient than before disaster struck. And I think that we also all agree that we must apply the lessons of Hurricane Harvey to improve the way the Texas responds to natural disasters. For example, I support ideas proposed by Senator Perry and by Representative Phelan. What they propose is to extend disaster solutions beyond just funding and to extend it beyond just the coastal region. And in addition to that, we must create a system that cuts through all of the red tape that slows the recovery process. Well, to give legislators the time they need this session to make Texas more resilient to future disasters, I am making disaster response an emergency item. Well, in addition to rebuilding our communities from disasters, we must do more to keep those communities safe from crime. We must do more to crack down on the treacherous gangs that bring drugs, weapons, and violence into our communities. Fortunately, Texas has already developed a winning strategy with 6 Texas anti-gang centers. These anti-gang centers, they are hubs where law enforcement agencies work together. They work together to crack down on gang activity and put these dangerous criminals behind bars. And we know these centers work. For example, in Houston, more than 1,400 gang-related arrests were made in 2017 alone. Nearly 250 of those arrests involved violent or high-threat offenders. And last year, 57 members of a white supremacist gang in Dallas were charged for drug trafficking and conspiracy to kidnap. This was the result of a DPS-led investigation aided by the Texas Anti-Gang Center in Dallas. More communities need these tools. So I am calling for 2 new anti-gang centers, one in Waco, Senator Birdwell, and another in Tyler, Senator Hughes. We want to rid those regions of dangerous gangs. Together, we will put more gang members behind bars, and we will dismantle their criminal enterprises, and we will make our neighborhoods safe for Texas families. And I'll add this. Listen, I know that everybody in this chamber has long waited for the day when Texas would not have to provide any more funding to secure our border. And yet, the federal government still has not fulfilled its responsibility. As a result, I am once again asking that Texas step up and fully fund our border security program. And we must also work together to crack down on human trafficking and to protect the victims of that heinous crime. I asked the legislature to increase funding to create 6 regional human trafficking squads. These squads will investigate and shut down human trafficking operations across the entire state. And I believe and ask that we agree that absolutely every trafficker should get mandatory jail time. These predators should be locked up, not freely roaming our streets looking for their next victim. Then we must also do more to ensure justice for survivors of rape and sexual assault. One of the most important tools that we have is forensic testing of rape kits. And yet, thousands of these kits have languished untested for years. This session, we must right this wrong. Together, we must provide more funding to eliminate the backlog and to deliver justice that has been denied far too long. So whether it's cracking down on human trafficking or eliminating the backlog of rape kits, I know we can get this done. I know because of leaders like Senator Huffman, as well as Senator Hinojosa and Representatives Elizabeth Thompson and Representative Neave. They are working on legislation to get this fixed this session. Let me mention one more thing that we must do. We must not turn our backs on the service and sacrifice of the men and women who have worn the uniform of the mightiest military in the history of this entire world. Some serve with us here today as legislators in this majestic Capitol. In fact, if there's anyone here, whether you be legislators or anybody else in the crowd, if you have ever worn the uniform of the United States military, would you stand and let us thank you for your service to our country? For you legislators, know how much we appreciate your service, but know this also. We are honored to work with you now in this Capitol and serve by your side to perpetuate the democracy that you fought for. But I think we all know that some returned broken from battle, with injuries both seen and unseen. Some cannot find a job. Others don't know how to find a job. Still others are homeless, possessing only a glimmer of the glory for which they once fought. They fought for our freedom. Now we have the obligation to fight for their future. Texas is the proud home to more than 1.6 million veterans. And yes, I know that we've made tremendous strides to better support our veterans. And in that regard, I thank our leaders like Senator Donna Campbell for her leadership, as well as the work of Representative Dan Flynn. Thank you for what you've done to already address the needs of our veterans. But this session, we have the opportunity to do even more. That includes fully funding the mental health program for veterans at HHSC. We must also fund the Texas Veterans Commission to help veterans receive the VA health care benefits they have earned. This session, we will ensure that veterans get the best services Texas can provide, so that the men and women who fought on the front lines will go to the front of the lines for accessing health care here in Texas. Now listen, no doubt, what I've outlined today is a transformative agenda for Texas. We have the opportunity to make Texas far better. And I want to assure you, people both inside the Capitol as well as outside the Capitol, they can see that we are on the threshold of doing something extraordinary. But we all know that whenever you try to do something extraordinary, it is never easy. Yes, there's going to be naysayers. There's going to be people who want to cling to the status quo. So of course it's going to be hard. But I believe that you were made for this moment. We were made for this moment. We serve at a unique time in Texas history, a time where we are going to be able to seize an opportunity to cement a legacy for Texas. We have the power to ensure that Texas is a state where our citizens realize their dream of owning a home or starting a business, where we prioritize student achievement and create safer schools, a state that puts public safety first whether it's in the face of natural disasters or in the face of dangerous gangs. A Texas where we expand economic opportunity and freedom to every single corner of our great state. In a state where we provide our veterans with the support they have earned. I want you to know I'm inspired by the camaraderie and the collaboration that has already infused this session. It seems unprecedented. And I got to tell you, I'm feeling it myself. I'm feeling moved. And I want to set the example. For example, I'm willing to step up and put aside past differences and work with Lyle Larson to reinstate the rivalry game between the Aggies and the Longhorns. Listen, what we must accomplish is going to require all of us working together on bold ideas. But Texas was built on bold ideas. It was built by the men and women who came before us, men and women who worked together to make Texas the most exceptional state in America. Now, it is our time to chart a course that will make Texas even better, not for just the next 4 years, but for the next 40 years. We have an opportunity to turn bold ideas into reality. We have the opportunity to grasp the brass ring that belongs to Texas. And when we do that, we are going to keep Texas the greatest state in America. God bless you all, and God bless Texas as we have a very successful session this year.
Fabulous speech.
Thank you, sir.
Well written, well delivered.
I know, you always do.
I would like to recognize our interpreters for the deaf, Alan Sessions and Sonia Smith, and thank you for your service here today.
The purpose for which this joint session was called has been completed pursuant to a motion previously adopted. The Senate stands adjourned until 10 a.m. on Wednesday, February 6th.
The purpose for which this joint session was called has been completed. The House will stand at ease pending the departure of our guests.